Hi everyone, welcome to Bello's Designs. My name's Catherine, and today we're going to be creating this card that I'm calling Dana's Pumpkin Patch. Let's talk about what we need to get started. We'll be using a piece of 5x7 Multifarious Cardstock. You'll also need a 10x7 card folded in half to create a 5x7 base. For stamps, I have LAV 695, the Foliage Set 2. Dana, which is LAV 863. LAV 824, Pumpkin Pad. LAV 828, Ickle Pumpkins. LAV 861, Corks. In addition to that, I'll be using my acetate hill masks, the pod stencil, the Lavinia stickers stencils number 7. I also have taken out my sentiment stickers, and I have the masking sheets to create a mask for the pumpkin. Here are some other things that we'll be using today. For inks, we'll be using the Versafine Clair Nocturne, Versafine Clair Golden Meadow, Versafine Clair Acorn, Tulip Red, and Sand Dune. I've also taken out some Lisa Horton inks, so we'll be working with Cloud 9 Rusty Nails, Early Sunrise, and Juicy Pineapple. You want to have a variety of blending brushes. We really only need 2, so I have one for the Early Sunrise and another one for the pineapple. I have my Wink of Stella in gold. Any Wink of Stella will do. And then I have a smaller blending brush to do the outline of the stencil. In addition to that, I've gone ahead and pulled out a few of my watercolor pens. So I have a variety of oranges in a dark, a medium, and a light. And then I've also taken out the gray and the olive green. Finally, the last thing I'll be using are some red stickles. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So the first step that I've found works best for me when I'm using the bottle stencil and the cork stamp is to actually stamp the cork first, because then I know I'm always going to get it straight and I can place the stencil around my stamped cork. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I am inking my cork with my Acorn Versafine Clair. So I'm just going to look for about the center of my card and put it down right here. All right, there we go. Now we can come back in with our stencil. I'm just going to clean this off so it's ready to go. Now I'm going to come back in with my stencil and place my stencil around the cork, and I know that my cork is going to be straight and right where I want it in my stencil. So let's come in now with our Juicy Pineapple and go ahead and ink up the inside of the stencil. And we're going to use the Early Sunrise ink and the smaller blending brush to just come in around the outside of our bottle. The next thing I'm going to do is bring in one of my hill masks, and I want to set it up at the bottom of my bottle just to give my pumpkins a little spot to rest. So I'm going to ink that up with my rusty nails. And it doesn't take much. Just a little brush over that. There we go. Now that we have our bottle grounded, let's go ahead and bring in the pumpkin pad. And I'm going to also take out the mask that I've created to use. I'm gonna just pop that right there so I don't misplace it. And we'll get our pumpkin all set on our ink block. And let's use the Nocturne to stamp that. I like to ink this up really well so I don't have to come back in with my fine line marker and touch it up later. But if we have to, we have to. That's just how it goes. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to plop that right down in the middle and give it a nice press. Okay. All right, that came out pretty good. Clean it off so it's ready to put away. Let's see. And we can come back in with our mask and place it right over that so we can get ready to do the next set of pumpkins. These masks are really nice because once you have stamped it and cut it out, you can get lots of uses out of it. This is at least the third time I'm using it, and I feel like it's sticky enough that I could probably get a few more if I needed to. So there's that. And on this pumpkin set, I'm going to go with the little, the Ickle pumpkin that has the window. And for this week, I'm avoiding the jack-o'-lantern because to me that's just more Halloween, and I want this to be more of a fall card and less of a Halloween card. So here we go. And then I'm going to do one on each side of my little pumpkin. Little Donna's going to have a 3-room pumpkin cottage going on over here. Okay, here we go. And put this one round about there. All right. That's looking good. I'm going to clean this off so I don't have any mishaps. Put the stamp away before I misplace them. All right, and next let's move on to stamping our leaves around the outside of our bottle. So clean off your hands if you need to do that. And I'd like to start with the Acorn, and I'm going to use my smallest block. got a little bit more than I bargained for on that one. Let's try that again. There we go. It's a juicy ink pad for sure. Okay, here we are. It's looking better. Nope. I'm just gonna wipe it off as I go along because I really want the detail from the edge of that leaf on my project. And the only thing you want to be careful of when you're stamping is that the mask is a little slippery, so you want to make sure that you have a firm pressure so that your stamp doesn't smudge and move. And again, I'm just wiping as I go along and making sure that I don't get too much ink on that because it is a newer, juicier ink pad. And some first and second generation stamps. I'll just cover that up with another stamp. There we go. And a couple more here. All right. I'm going to clean this one off, and we're going to move on to the smaller of the oak leaves in that set. So I'm going to replace it. And this one will stamp with our Tulip Red, and on top of the yellow and brown, it almost gives it a little bit of an orange glow. So once again, not making sure our stamp is not too inky. We want all the details. And just come back in and do some more first and second generation stamping around the inside edge of this bottle. In the Golden Meadow, and I'm going to change my stamp and use this little guy here, still from the same foliage set. So this is the one we'll be stamping in the Golden Meadow. At this point, I think it's going to be my safest bet to remove my mask. And if you are having trouble, I may have already said this, with this sticking, you can, before putting it down on your card, give it a little press on some scrap paper or the top of your jeans, just to make, because it's very sticky and sometimes they can be a little troublesome getting them off of your card without ruining that. So just a helpful hint to think ahead for that. I'm going to clean this off and just put it to the side because I don't want to misplace it. I'm going to be using my bottle later. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is come in with our 3 shades of orange. And for the top pumpkin that's more towards the front, I'm gonna go with a little bit of a lighter color. And then to make these look like they're a little more in the background, I'll use the darker 2 on the pumpkins in the back. And I noticed that I did miss, there's a little bit of a gap here from stamping over that mask. So once I'm done with my coloring, I will come back with my micron pen and fill that in. Okay, now that I've finished coloring in my pumpkins, I'm going to come back and stamp in Donna sitting on top of the pumpkin, and I'm going to place her just off to the side a little bit so she's not covering up the stem. So let's get her good and inked up so that we'll get a nice clear image on the first try. Let's see how that comes out. And there we go. All right, we're good with her. I'm going to come back in with my olive green and just paint in the stems and the little leaves on my pumpkins. Then we'll be moving on to the next step. All right, and let's give her just a little bit of a glow on her lamp. Okay. Now before I cover my bottle with my mask and work on the outside edge, I'm going to come back in with my watercolor pen and my rusty nails and just quickly fill in my bottle or my cork. So just add a little bit here. And get up and here we go. Just a little more. Okay. And there we are. So the next step for this project is to cover our bottle with our stencil, and we're going to take care of the outside edge of our card. There we go. So I'm going to come back in with my juicy pineapple and just blend the color around the outside. And starting on my stencil, I can just bring it out. And we don't even have to make it as dark as we had it on the inside. If you're looking for that little bit of differentiation, you can just go a little bit lighter. And remembering that as our card sits, the inks will soak in and blend together a little more than they appear to at first. There we are. All right, and now I'm going to take out my stencil. I'm choosing to use the pod stencil today. It just seems very fallish to me. I really like the look of it. And I'm going to place it just right over my card and come back in with my rusty nails and my blending brush. And not too heavy with this, just lightly be coming in and doing just around the edge of the bottle to the outside of our card. All right, there we go. We're nearly done. All right, just to finish off my card, I am going to bring back my Hill Mask and just work on adding a little bit of shading to the bottom of my bottle, and I'm going to just use my rusty nails to do that. And I'll fill in a little more on the outside. And there we are. Okay. The next step, when we're almost done, I'd like to add just a little bit of distressing to the outside edge of my card. So I'm going to do that with my Versafine Clair Sand Dune and a smoothie. So just pick that up and just add a little bit to the edge. Just completing those fall colors and that fall look. The next thing I want to do is bring out my Wink of Stella, and I have the gold, and I'm going to come in and just add a little glow around Donna's lantern. Give it a little bit of shimmer and blend out a little bit of that orange. And then I'm also going to use this on her wings around the outside of my pumpkins and a little bit on the inside too. Now, if you wanted to, at this point, you could add a little bit of splatter, and some people like to do that on their cards, but I think for this card, I'm going to just leave it as it is, and I'm going to bring in my Christmas red stickles, and this is going to be the last step to just add a little bit of glimmer and magic on my leaves. So I'll just kind of dot that around inside of there, just for a little extra sparkle. And maybe a little more right here. All right, we'll set that aside and give it some time to dry, and then come back and assemble the final card. All right, our card has had some time to dry and the stickles are all set, so we're ready to assemble it together. Now, I always say when I'm teaching stamping classes that there is no mistake in stamping that you can't fix. And so when I was creating this sample, I accidentally hit the edge of my stamping block on my pad and I didn't notice, and I ended up with 2 tan lines right down the side of my card. So although it wasn't planned, I did add a couple of journaling stickers. So we're gonna go ahead, oops, sorry about hitting that. We'll go ahead and add one to this card because I noticed that I also have a little smudge right here up the side. And though I think probably nobody's going to notice that, I know it's there, and so I would like to cover it up. So in keeping with the theme, I believe I'm going to go with this sticker that reads, take each day as it comes. This one I did, today is a new day and enjoy the journey. So I think this fits really well with that as a little theme going. And I'm just going to place it down right here. And there we go. So now we have our smudge covered up. Now that being said, I do have something funny to share with you. The other day I started working on this tutorial, and as I got to the end of my bottle, I stamped my cork, and look what happened. It ended up way off to the side. I tried to fix it with the stencil, that didn't work out so well. So that being said, we have another side to work on for another day. So there we go. All right, so my final step is going to be just to assemble my card. Now, while I was off camera, I did come in with my paper trimmer, and I cut about 1/16 of an inch off of each side of my card, and that took away any harsh lines from the distressing I did around the edges. And it's also going to give me just the smallest amount of a border on my card base. So I'm going to come back in with my glue press. You know how I love this thing. And just add a bead of glue all the way around each edge of my card. That seems to have gotten stuck a little bit. So sometimes this will happen, and all you need to do is use the cap to plug in the little pin in the cap, pull it back out. There we go. Now that should be unstuck, and there's our little bead of glue coming right out the edge. You can see that. Okay. So here we are. All right, and so there we are. Here's our card that we finished today. Here's my sample that I made previously. Here's the blooper that I didn't show you. All right, thank you for joining me today. If you're not already a member of Del Bello's Facebook groups, please consider joining Del Bello's Designs Lounge, where you can share your projects featuring Lavinia Stamps products, or Del Bello's a la carte for all other stamp lines that Del Bello's sells. Thanks for coming. See you soon.